Welcome to this edition of Campus Budget. With the power of 282, Narendra Modi has been one of India's most popularly elected Prime Ministers. And as his Chief Lieutenant, Arun Jaitley gets set to present his third budget, much is at stake. With the global economy going through ups and downs, many say India is the bright spot in the gloomy global world. But with investments really trickling in very slowly, what more can he really do? And that is why we are here at the Faculty of Management Studies in Delhi University with the young and aspirational India that perhaps voted for the Modi government. Let me first begin by asking you, this is going to be the third budget of the Modi government, will be very crucial because many expect that the next budget is going to be more along the populist lines because the government will then have to really focus on the 2019 polls. If I may ask you, what are your key expectations from this budget? Identify yourself and what do you really think this budget should entail?
Well, I am Ayush Gandhi. For the upcoming budget, I am hoping to see a balance between the boosting growth and at the same time reduction of the fiscal deficit. For example, if you see for the last 13 months, there has been a decrease in the exports, and so the domestic demand has to increase at this moment of time. So if you look, the current scenario, the oil prices are at a 12 years low at $30 per barrel. So right now this is the dream situation for any finance minister. So the fiscal deficit should be reduced at this moment of time.
So hi, my name is Sachin, and I believe that this fiscal we have seen that our fiscal deficit has remained within the government target, and I believe that we have fiscal space. So I think this is the time to expand our budget on productive activities like education and health, and really give a boost to the growth. So that's what I believe.
You believe in boosting growth. Anybody else who has a different view?
There are some people saying that the economy should be boosted and the government should continue with the fiscal expansion plan. But keeping in mind the credit agencies, it's very important to keep fiscal deficit in check so that we don't lose out on credit ratings, and eventually that we'll lose out on investments. So keeping in mind that I expect from government is that subsidies should be rationalized, direct benefit transfer should be used, and not just for the transfer through like we are doing with the Pradhan Mantri Yojanas, but also for like fertilizer subsidies which are like 70,000 crore, those should also be transferred through DBT and cut out on the excess expenditure.
Very important point raised, of course, that there is a need for subsidy rationalization. But you also remember the fact that the last time that the government spoke about expanding fiscal deficit, it took India almost 8 years to get back on the path of fiscal consolidation. Where do you guys stand?
I am Aditya. So what I believe is at this point the government shouldn't concentrate much on the fiscal deficit as such, because with the considered reduction in the barrel oil, which interests most of our import or the foreign exchange reserves, and the internal domestic growth is also not much, and no incentive to grow or any demand. So government should spend at this point of time without having much constraints in terms of fiscal deficit. Government should actually try to spend on it, and I believe there should be a support from the RBI also, because rather than restricting them to stick to the fiscal consolidation,
right,
I believe it is time to government to spend actually and boost the growth from them itself.
Okay, what about you?
Yeah. Hi, I am Dhruv. And one important aspect that we have forgotten in the discussion till now is that one rank, one pension and 7th pay commission has to be rolled out. So again, this will put pressure on the government because they have to arrange for around 1.1 trillion rupees.
Right, absolutely.
So let's see what they do to implement this, and this is the major challenge to contain the fiscal deficit. And apart from this, meeting the disinvestment targets, which were very ambitious last year,
Right.
and they haven't been met till now, that should be seen.
Hi, my name is Akshdeep. I think one of the things that the government can explore is scrapping of the corporate tax in SEZ, especially MAT. Because I think having these taxes is against the very idea of the SEZ itself. So I think this is an important thing that the government can explore.
Do you think Achhe Din are here? In fact, do you think India is the bright spot in the gloomy global world? Given the fact that there is a big reset that is happening in China, along with that, there is a slow recovery that's happening in Europe. How do you see the chances as far as India is concerned? And do you think as far as this budget is concerned, the time to perform is now?
Modi government has taken the initiative of involving in the Make in India campaign. But the thing is that if we look at the countries like Germany and US, they have spent a lot of money in their R&D. So I think in order to, and we have seen a lot of startups coming up with the new ideas. So in order to come up with better products and better designs, we have to spend a lot of money in R&D also.
So we have recently seen the data for the growth has been released, and the growth forecast is actually the growth this fiscal year is going to be higher than the forecasted. And moreover, we have seen that there is going to be a growth of around 9.5% till December in manufacturing sector, although the IIP data says otherwise.
Otherwise, absolutely.
But overall, if we see over a period of 2 years, we have seen that manufacturing has picked up actually. We have seen a lot of investment both in foreign direct investment and in terms of FIIs, institutional investors coming up in India. Moreover, with the recent slump in the Chinese market, although due to globalization, we have also witnessed a shock in the market. But the outlook for the India remains positive in the eyes of the investors. So I believe overall there have been many positive developments, but there is load remains to be done mostly in the space of education and health, because our expenditure in that regard remains very low when compared to similar countries in Southeast Asia and East Asia.
Rural demand continues to be a big worry, but at this point of time, if the government really goes ahead for fiscal expansion, the rating agencies may not take it too kindly. And do you think at this point of time, India can really take that load from the rating agencies? Credibility is going to be definitely be at stake. I mean, you know, what is the view from your end?
Coming to credit agencies, I would like to mention that once we had a very small interaction with someone from Singapore Sovereign Welfare Fund, and what they told us was that India is a hotspot of investment, but not by choice, but by elimination of other options.
Right.
So this is something which Finance Minister should definitely look into this time, that balancing growth and investment should be in a very sustainable manner. Because once if you have been chosen by elimination, that is not something.
But that's
we are
a very
looking.
valid point that you've raised, because many say at this point of time, given the fact that there is an economic reset that's happening in China, along with the problems that we're witnessing in Russia and Brazil, perhaps it's time for India to walk alone and not walk with the BRICS. What is your opinion on that?
I think we have already started in that direction, because the Make in India campaign was to generate a lot of self-sufficiency, and in that regard a lot of promises came from investors like Lava and other companies Foxconn to manufacture in India. So if that starts this year and a lot of jobs are again rolled out, the government will be on the right track. And answering one of the previous questions wherein you said that what do you see for the past 2 years, the job market for graduates like us has been very enthusiastic. We continue to see in newspapers that a lot of funding is coming from abroad.
Right.
To like Snapdeal got a funding. So that is just a lot of it goes to the credit goes to the government as well.
So with your point of balancing growth and fiscal deficit, and of course the global cues of China and Japan and other countries facing a slowdown, I think the US also is feeling the heat because of the falling crude prices.
Right.
Also with the quantitative easing, tapering off, India is finding difficult to get the funds from abroad. So there lies the challenge, what I think. Because India, of course, should focus more on growth, but it is falling short of funds because the FIRs are pulling out.
Right.
So that's a major challenge, what I feel.
But do you think can India walk alone and not walk with BRICS at this point of
Exactly.
time?
So India should, take an advantage of this fallen crude prices and put more focus more on the infrastructure development. So if we spend more on infrastructure in this budget, I feel that we'll be pushing more on growth and focusing less on reducing fiscal deficit this time, which would later benefit us.
Like most advantageous time to do so, because as far as the crude prices are concerned, and the threat is there. If you don't walk the path alone now, if you don't invest in infrastructure right now, and you rely on the trade ties, then I think it will be not that good.
A lot of you have raised the point of the fact that at this point of time exports are at an all-time low. I want to really ask you guys, what should India really do to become competitive in this market?
Hi, my name is Akshati. I think one thing that India can do at present is that it should focus on countries which have demand, particularly African economies, because as we see that European Union is stagnating, and on the other hand, Brazil, countries like Brazil and Russia are going down. So I think focusing more on giving our companies more opportunities to invest in Africa would be a good option.
So invest in Africa here.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. So I think on this point of building competitiveness for itself, obviously one part of it does hinge on building cost competitiveness, but I think another important aspect is also developing India as a brand, developing it not only as a manufacturing location, but a location that manufactures quality goods that can be exported to the world. And I think you were mentioning earlier that India is sort of a bright spot in what is right now a very gloomy global economy, but I think part of what makes it such a beacon of growth at the moment is the stability that we've been riding on. And to some extent, this stability will come from fiscal conservativeness. It will come from the lack of the extreme inflation that we're seeing in places like Brazil. And I think it does bring us back to this point of should we favour infrastructure and perhaps the possibility of quick short-term bursts of growth, or should we be looking for long-term stability, which I think will really impress credibility in terms of investors, foreign investors, as well as just credit agencies. So I think maybe this does strengthen the case for fiscal conservativeness as well as just short-term boosts of growth.
But the main problem in India is that there is not enough skilled labor or manpower. As of 2014, only 34% of the engineers were employable. I mean, the other 66% were lacking in their skills. And obviously, the big companies have these apprehensions as well. Why should we enter India? Do they have enough people for us? So this is one area that they can put a lot of money in. I mean, some kind of a skill development program that they can introduce this time around.
I'm also going to touch upon this very important point because at this point of time, everybody says that the banks are not really able to support the growth in the economy because, you know, if I'll just throw some numbers at you, we need about 2.4 lakh crore rupees to meet the Basel III norms. Apart from that, there is about 1.41 lakh crore rupees that has been written off by over 29 PSU banks over the last couple of years. Do you think at this point of time more capital infusion in banks is justified? Because there's this whole narrative that is talking about more capital infusion. Or do you think at this point of time we should completely ignore the Basel III norms because India is a developing country? What is your opinion? What should be done at this point of time to support the growth in the economy? Okay, I'll come to you.
Hi, my name is Shankanath. So, essentially capital infusion is a band-aid approach. Since 2010, the government has actually, spent about 67,000 crores into these, banks, and it plans to put about 70,000 crores more into the bank. Right. But if you see the ratings of these, rating agencies, CRISIL says that 9 out of the 24 public sector banks have been put into the negative territory. So it is essentially putting good money after bad money.
Absolutely.
And there is no guarantee that these banks are going to make, judicious use of these money into generating, valuable assets. So in my opinion, capital infusion is not the right way for the government to tackle this problem.
So capital infusion is not the right way. If they do not go ahead and infuse more capital, what should they do? Sell off non-core assets? Anybody who would like to add to that point?
I would just like to add to his point that infusing capital is not the way to go, because as we see that when RBI forced the banks to come clean on NPAs, the figures have astounded everyone. Absolutely. Because they have not been dealing in the good practices. So we have to make them come clean first, and then we can put our good money to their use.
Government has actually initiated several related initiatives in the form of Indradhanush strategy, wherein they were trying to reform the boards of the banks. Also, they constituted Banks Board Bureau, which is going to recruit for banks, with RBI governor being the head of that. So government has initiated reforms and they are going to take time to bring in results. But coming to the Basel III norms, as you mentioned that India is a developing country, whether it is the right time to bring in Basel III or not, I believe financial sector is as crucial in India as it is in USA. Absolutely. So I think bringing Basel III is a positive step for reforming the entire sector. And whatever discussion we have had, it only reinforces that point that we need to bring in Basel III to avoid any financial shock that can occur due to the NPAs or other distress, market risks, maybe financial risk. So I believe it is the right time to bring in Basel III.
But it's the right time to bring Basel III, but good money behind bad money. Where do we really stand on that?
So I think India needs or the governments needs to bring some policy. There needs to be some policy intervention for this kind of like people now returning the money, and like the Indian RBI governor came with the idea that the naming and shaming of people who are not keeping with a good account. So in that way, I think India can improve on the NPAs, and they can reduce the NPA that are accumulating over the Indian finance system.
Thank you. I'm also going to touch upon this very important point because when the Modi government came to power, everybody was talking about that there is a need to simplify the tax regime. The government in the last couple of years, in the last 2 years, if I may say, have talked about a whole host of schemes. They've put tax panels in place to simplify the tax regime. They're also talking about that at this point of time, we should look at a better solution for cases like Vodafone and Kane. But also, they're also looking at this point of time, whole host of tax simplification that they've announced for young entrepreneurs. So what can the government really do to ensure better compliance, tax compliance, ensure a better tax to GDP ratio?
As the government moves towards simplifying the tax regime, we should realize that we are a country where only 4% of the people actually pay taxes.
Absolutely.
So rather than using the corporate taxes and excise duties as a way to gather
Garner more
revenue,
tax, right.
they should focus on expanding this tax base. Maybe by using not so heavy taxes, but a certain levy which is not much, so that actually people enter and become a tax base of the country.
Anybody who would want to add to the point?
So I agree with him, but there is another problem plaguing India currently. So this is double taxation. So especially entrepreneurs, they suffer from giving repeated taxes, which cripples them at the very bootstrapping stage. So I would very much like it if the government could somehow implement a uniform tax regime, especially from the basic level, and probably give them a tax waiver in the form of, say, service tax waiver for 2 or 3 years. That would help them to grow, and then they can be like brought into the mainstream.
Okay. Anybody from the front row who would like to add to this?
I would like to quote some data here that was given by CSO, which said that in 2012 and 2013, the indirect tax expenditure increased, the revenue from that increased mainly because of restaurants and hotels. So government can focus on such areas where they cannot, they shouldn't tax the poor, but yes, increase the revenues which is coming in from these areas. And apart from this, GST should be on the priority list of the government again, and because that will reduce the number of exemptions as well and will contribute to the economy by say around $15 billion.
GST is all about the politics of the GST as well as the politics of the budget really. But I want to ask you guys about the rural economy, because everybody knows that at this point of time the rural economy is undergoing a lot of stress also because of the 2 consecutive years of drought that we've seen. What should the government really do? Because in the last 2 years, if we've seen, the government has announced an irrigation scheme, they've announced crop reinsurance, but what more can we really do to push the agri GDP, to push the percentage that agriculture sector has in the GDP? Anybody who would like to add? Yeah.
So we were earlier talking about infrastructure development. So I think one of the main focuses of infrastructure development should be the development of irrigation facilities and of other technological advances which have happened in agriculture, because since we know more than 60% of India's population is actually employed by agriculture. So to take care of that population of the country, I think those technological and infrastructure advances are very necessary. So there should be provisions for that in this budget.
Okay. Anybody else?
So in the Manrega scheme that was there, the more budget allotment to that should be given in this budget, which will improve the domestic demand. Right. And another thing, the public distribution system which is in place, that should be improved. Also, more people should be placed in the infrastructure part from the rural area, which will again help in the improvement.
But I want to shift the focus now to education and healthcare sector, because education, given the fact that we are here at the FMS campus, this is very important. Even we barely put our money, we barely put our resources into education. What should this budget entail as far as education and the health sector are concerned?
Hi, myself Akash Purohit. So I'll connect Make in India and the education sector both. So as we all know that India has a huge deficit when it comes to skilled labor, and according to some stats, the children, the students are dropping out of schools from the 6th class, 9th class to support their parents. So what I believe is for such students and the children who cannot continue their education, the government should facilitate a skill development program so that they can enroll themselves in some sort of industries or some skilled labor they can do to provide for their families. So even if they cannot get a proper education, maybe they can get some sort of help from the government in terms of labor.
Okay.
So
and becoming more skilled.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm Ishita. So I'll be linking education and health with the demographic dividend. So we see that today India's population is fairly young, and if we are not able to engage this population in education, so this population won't be productive. As we are talking about Make in India, then we won't be able to get the dividend out of this population. Ultimately, in a couple of years, as the population grows, they will be a liability on us. And as he pointed out rightly, that skill gap is a major issue. While our students are getting degrees on paper, they are actually not skilled enough to
Absolutely, and they're not able to be absorbed in the job market.
Yes, so in that regard, skill development is very essential, and the need that the degrees which are there are actually of some use.
Myself Sunil. So I link this budget with the expectations of the students which we are having from this budget is that the loan paying back period, which is currently 8 years, it should be increased to 10 years so that the installments which we are paying back can be easier, and it's easy for us to pay back those installments. And also at the same time, it will help the banks to control those NPAs also, because due to these NPAs, due to these bad NPAs which students are not able to pay back those installments, it can help the banks also to control this installments and these NPAs.
At this point of time, do you think the budget session will in fact be more important than the budget itself? Because budget we know will get passed, I mean, you know, with a few additions and subtractions here and there, but the budget session, how important will that be?
If you see in the last 2 parliament sessions, they were almost a washout because almost no bills were passed in that. So if you see in the current session, almost more than 60 to 70 bills in the Rajya Sabha are pending, like the GST bills, the real estate bill, the bankruptcy bill, which are very important for the corporates right now. So if those bills are passed right now, it will help India in the growth in a very impactful manner.
Okay. But who is really at fault? Because, you know, whole host of these almost 70 odd bills, as have been pointed out by you, are stuck in the parliament. Who is to be blamed? Do you think the government would have tried reaching out to the opposition better? Or do you think the opposition is just playing hardball with the government? Okay.
My name is Akshay. I think the case is the latter, where the opposition is really playing hard to, allow the bills to be passed. I mean, for the past GST has been a long debate. It's been there since the debate's been there since 2003, and UPA had come close to, working on it, but they couldn't. And I think since the last 2 sessions, it has become pretty evident that in spite of it getting passed in Lok Sabha, at the Rajya Sabha it's got stalled again because of, I could say the antics of the opposition. So I really think the opposition needs to become more open to such, to the ideas of the government in power, and only then can we see some progress. And definitely GST is very important. It needs to come into effect. What I have understood from critics, we can expect almost a 2% growth in our GDP with the GST coming in. So I definitely feel that GST is an important issue that should be the bill should be passed this budget session.
Thank you. Do you also think that the opposition is playing hardball?
Yes, I think so. My name is Pawan, and the game is like the game is of politics. When Congress was in power, BJP used to oppose it. Now BJP is in power, Congress is opposing it. And it will happen in future also. But as you're saying that some of the Congress Rajya Sabha members are just their tenure is finishing, so BJP will be in a better position to just force these stuck bills so that they can be passed in the parliament.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
What I believe is the passage of GST bill, it will occur for the next 2 years will be followed by high inflation, and over that only the benefits of the GST could be reaped. So the Congress, the main opposition party, is trying to stall the bill, so to try to pass out the later part of the year so they could reap the benefits. So I believe at this point of time the opposition should come forward for the passage of the GST bill at the earliest, so that the country could reap the benefits out of it. So I believe the opposition party should come forward and support the government in passage of various bills.
That brings us to the end of this edition of Campus Budget. Students here feel that infra growth is very important, but that should not come at the cost of fiscal expansion. They feel that at this point of time, fiscal conservatism is very important for the government. They're also saying that they should not put good money behind bad money in the PSU banks and should not look at more capital infusion as far as the PSU banks are concerned. The 2 focus areas are agriculture as well as the health and the education sector. A whole host of demands really coming in from the young and aspirational India, and it needs to be seen whether Finance Minister Arun Jaitley will really pay heed to all these expectations from here. But that, of course, on the 29th of February in this month.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNow Live. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.